Shana Tova. A friend of mine, Rabbi Miriam Turlin-Champ, once described her congregation as that nice, cute, smart, sweet boy in high school that had little self-esteem, and so none of the girls wanted to date him. Now, she was describing her small congregation, but I feel like her analogy could describe how many of us feel about Judaism in general. Judaism is pretty amazing, but instead of Jewish people talking to all of their friends about how much Judaism has to offer, we tend to do the opposite. We attend begrudgingly or not at all. And when someone not born into our faith chooses it, we wonder why. And yet, Jews have never enjoyed more acceptance than we do today. According to the Pew Research polls, Jews happen to be the most well-liked minority group. I know it doesn't feel like that all the time. Whomever you voted for in 2016, and please don't talk about it so we don't fight, both candidates were proud to have Jewish sons-in-law and Jewish grandchildren. Anti-Semitism is real, and we have to be diligent about combating it. But we also have to acknowledge that we've never been more accepted or admired. Over 35% of our marriages are to non-Jews. That is a huge sign of our acceptance. And 1 in 6 American Jews are Jews by choice. That's right, 1 in 6 American Jews weren't born into our faith, they fell in love with it. It's like that boy, remember? The one you overlooked in high school? Remember how you didn't get why the girl from the other school wanted to date him? It's like that. Judaism has a lot to offer. That's why Christian groups are studying Musar, why the Talmud is a bestseller in South Korea, why the Dalai Lama met with Jewish leaders to learn how to keep faith going while living in the diaspora. And yet, a much-cited 2013 Pew Research Center study found that while 94% of American Jews felt proud to be Jewish, 22% of us describe ourselves as having no religion. 2/3 of these Jews are raising their kids without any kind of Jewish identity. The trend is also to move from more observant branches of Judaism to less observant, meaning 1/3 of Orthodox children will become conservative as adults. 30% of their kids will choose Reform Judaism, and 28% of those will be Jews of no religion at all. And when we want spirituality, we don't always turn to our roots, but rather we choose from a marketplace of ideas. Today, it's common for tribe members to check out the local Unitarian church, to do some yoga at the Buddhist Sangha. Some of us meditate. Others experiment with spiritual highs through mind-altering drugs. But most of us choose to do nothing. It sounds like we're disappearing. So let me tell you why I'm hopeful. Because in a time where Jewish observance, where being Jewish is a choice, I firmly believe that Judaism is worth choosing. We live in a world where too often might makes right. Success is measured by who has the most power, and where our deep inner hunger is fed by materialism and greed. Judaism is primarily concerned with how we treat those on the margins of society, demands that we treat the most vulnerable, the widow, the poor, the outsider, the orphan, with love and kindness. And in Judaism, our deep inner hunger is recognized as our soul crying out for meaning, for opportunities to transcend the self. If you feel you don't need what Judaism has to offer, I would ask you this. Are you looking for peace of mind or spiritual connection? Do you want to understand yourself more? become a better person, lead a more meaningful, impactful life. Judaism, when done right, does these things. It's not always easy. It can be uncomfortable. And that's because when taken seriously, Judaism should make us wrestle with ideas that challenge our core beliefs and hold us to more rigorous moral standards than we would otherwise, and pushes us to grow as human beings. So I'd like to talk to you today about how Judaism is not stale and not unattractive, but is, in a word, epic. Hey, it's 5780, so why not a word from the 1980s, right? Epic, both in its plain meaning, as an ancient oral tradition narrating the history of a nation. Epic as in the slang version, as something extraordinary, as well as what I want to introduce today. Epic as an acronym for what we need to get the most from our faith. E, engagement, P, passion, I, introspection, and C, community. So let's start with E, engagement. The ancient temple in Jerusalem had many portals of entry, both spiritually and physically. There were multiple gates to ensure entry so that people could come in wherever they were coming from. This is what we have as well. Many gates into our Betham world, from basketball to sisterhood, from social action to music, from study to mahjong, day school, religious school, you name it. The doors here are open. We're all born with an innate longing for purpose. We all want connection to something larger than ourselves. We long for a community to dance with and cry with. We want to be better people, more honest, generous, and patient. We want holidays and life cycle rituals that bring our families and the entire community together to honor those milestones in our lives. Judaism can do this, but only if we engage. My pop-pop used to tell this joke. Day after day, Morty would pray to God that God would let Morty win the lottery. Morty would bargain with God, would explain, just this once, God, it would help so much, my family, we would be so much happier, we would be so much more secure, and he would list all of the mitzvahs that he would do if only he had the money, if only he could win the lottery. And yet, day after day, week after week, year after year, Morty never won a penny. And after decades of crying and pleading with God, Morty was in fervent prayer when he heard a heavenly voice that said, "Morty, buy a ticket already." My pop-pop played the numbers every week until he died. He also went to shul every day. You can't win without buying a lottery ticket, just like religion can't feed you spiritually if you don't show up. It's true for our relationships as well. I was counseling a couple who were not only growing apart, but were beginning to wonder what they ever saw in their partner. I asked them about their lives and heard two wonderfully accomplished people tell me about all of the amazing things they were doing, all of the long hours they were putting into their careers. But their partner wasn't part of the story they were telling. They were merely roommates. So, I had them brainstorm 20 ideas for dates. Actually, I only asked them for 10, but they were so disconnected that they both made their own list. Then, I asked them to look at their calendar, pick one day, one date, and stick to it. No excuses. The next time I saw them, they were holding hands. They'd fallen back in love again. They'd gone ahead and scheduled each of those 20 dates for the year to come. They simply needed time to engage with one another. That's what engagement is all about, making time for what matters. If you want Shabbat to recharge your batteries, you have to be willing to make time for Shabbat. You want to experience moments of transcendence? Try showing up to services. You want to improve yourself? Try Torah or Musar practice. Want to heal the world? Try some of our myriad social justice opportunities. We want the love affair. So, make a date. Get engaged. P, passion. When Amy was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, it was devastating, but it wasn't unexpected. She knew that her family had a history of this cancer, and so she'd insisted that her doctor check her constantly. It was this boldness that allowed her cancer to be found before it spread to other parts of her body. For the next year, she went through chemotherapy, multiple surgeries, and endless hours at doctors' offices. She lost her appetite, her hair, pieces of her body, but she survived. Her 2 daughters, Aaliyah and Riley, watched their mother and wanted to do something to help. And so the sisters came up with an idea. What if they could hold a run to help raise money to find a cure? What if they could raise enough money to help women who couldn't afford the life-saving treatment? Their mother had instilled in them a passion for helping others. Maybe they could get others to volunteer to help their mother and to help others who were in their lives who had been diagnosed. Another passion of theirs was dance. And they knew that Jay Marcos from Video Sync had lost his mother to breast cancer. And so they asked this in-demand choreographer if he would make their run rock. And he agreed. They brought their idea to us here at Beth Am, and the Rock and Run was born. After the first Rock and Run, Aaliyah was interviewed by the Sun Sentinel. In the interview, Aaliyah said, "I definitely feel more connected and closer to my religion and God, as I really feel great after the event that we've touched so many lives." As you know, I too am a survivor. The first year of the Rock and Run, I was bald. I was bold too. But I was bald under my pink bandana. Throughout the cancer, I'd had to rely on other people to help our family, to cover for me when I was in treatment. I had to trust my doctors knew what they were doing, and I often felt powerless. The Rock and Run made me feel powerful. I could finally do something to help others. I ran and I danced, and I hadn't danced in years, and rediscovered a passion of mine. And I learned to appreciate my new altered body. And those girls who wanted to help their mother have helped hundreds of us. They've raised our spirits, given us hope, helped us to feel powerful and supported, and have raised over $1 million. They plugged their passions into a greater purpose. Thank you. Bring your passion to Beth Am. Make us better. The Whitman family does this by bringing their music to us every Saturday morning minyan. Mark Bookbinder, who's right there, does this by bringing his passion and organizing our Immigrant Justice Committee. So do many others. They all make Beth Am a better place. But imagine what our community would look like if we all did this. Now that would be truly epic. Judaism teaches that each and every one of us is born with an innate purpose. Since they're all unique, I can't tell you from here what yours is, but I can tell you that Jewish practice will give you a greater ability to see what you've been called to do. And here's one thing I know for sure. None of us were sent here to serve ourselves. We were all sent to serve something greater. But seeing that requires introspection. Introspection. In high school, I worked at the Archway Cookie Factory. After a few weeks, they moved me onto the individually wrapped cookie line. So I had 2 conveyor belts that were coming towards me. One, a thick one coming out of the bakery, and the other one a skinny one where I would drop the individual cookies. So I would stack up the big cookies and then drop them into this belt. And as they went, I'm watching two belts going. And as I got into a rhythm, it would go faster and faster and faster and faster. And I would stand there for hours looking at these two belts. And one day when I was doing this, I dropped one of the cookies incorrectly, which jammed the machine, which stopped the belts, which caused me to fall over. I had been staring at these belts for so long that I couldn't keep my balance when it came time to stop. I share this because this is how most of us approach life. We have multiple conveyor belts going. We take on more and more. We go faster and faster, and we hate stopping. In fact, when we're forced to stop, we often can't stand it. We don't know how to sit and be without consuming or doing. Many of us, even when we're passively consuming, are multitasking. How many of you are guilty, like I am, of being on the computer or phone in front of the television? We are bad at stopping, but we need to stop. As Dr. Matthew J. Edlund writes in Psychology Today, you need rest to grow and regenerate, to learn and experience the fullest passion. In other words, to live. Dr. Edlund says the problem is that people don't get rest. They don't get it in two senses. They don't get enough of it, and they don't understand what rest is and what it does. Stop sleep, and you can die. Short shrift sleep, and you wreck your ability to learn and remember. Increase your chances of stroke and heart attack. Set yourself up for colds. Mess up your skin. Set yourself up for weight gain quickly and reliably. And that is just the passive form of rest, sleep. We also need physical rest, mental rest, social rest, spiritual rest, which are all ways to renew you and restore you as your body rebuilds itself. And rebuild itself it must. This is what Jewish practice does for us. It makes us stop. Stop before you eat that. Say a blessing. Savor. Say a blessing after. Stop. Notice the beauty that's around you. Say a blessing. Wake up. Stop. Say a blessing. Judaism is one giant mindfulness practice, complete with noticing, savoring, and meditation. Traditional Jews pray 3 times a day. This helps them to stop and recenter. Most Reform Jews don't pray 3 times a day. It's a lot to ask. But what about just once a week? What about Shabbat? In the Tapestry of Jewish Time, which is a book by the Union, there's a beautiful description of the Havdalah candle. It says that we tend to enter Shabbat with our souls unraveling, pulled as we are in so many directions by the demands of the week and the many roles we play. On Shabbat, we have time to weave together the disparate strands of our lives. We may begin the day like Shabbat candles, apart, pieces of ourselves separated one from the other. But through the peace of Shabbat, we emerge whole once more, woven together like the wicks of a Havdalah candle. Shabbat is our moment to stop the conveyor belts, to make time to just be, to get in touch with our souls, our loved ones, our community. We go into Shabbat apart, but we end Shabbat together, both as individuals and as a community, which brings me to see community. One of the sermons I gave last High Holy Days was about loneliness. In it, I shared Surgeon General Vivek Murphy's warning that Americans are facing an epidemic of loneliness and social isolation. In it, I also shared that this has terrible effects on our body. It can make it hard for us to fall asleep, hard to wake up, Chronically lonely people have lower functioning immune systems, higher rates of heart disease. And one recent article shows that loneliness is as dangerous to our health as obesity and as bad for our bodies as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We are more isolated socially than ever before, as convenience has lessened our need to ever leave the house or interact with people unless we choose to. And politically, we've become more tribal, often viewing those who vote differently as the enemy. But the more we divide ourselves, the more isolated and lonely we feel. Judaism stands in contradistinction to this. Judaism is a religion that cannot be done alone. There are certain prayers we can't say unless we're in a group of 10. We come together to read Torah 3 times a week, to pray daily. We come together to mourn and to celebrate and to help one another. We even confess together. All of the prayers we say over these high holy days are in the plural. Beth Am is a sanctuary from the divisiveness. It doesn't mean we don't talk about issues that matter. We do, and we are proud that we do. But it means that you belong here. Your voice matters here. You can bring all of yourself to this place, and you'll be welcome. There are 2 primary books in Judaism, the Tanakh, a spiritual history of our people, and the other, the Talmud. Crack open the Talmud, pick a page, any page, and you will see differing opinions. Our rabbis disagree. They fight. And both the majority and minority opinions are held sacred. Dissent is so important in Judaism. According to Mishnah Sanhedrin, if a Jewish court unanimously finds someone guilty of murder, then that person goes free, because dissent is necessary to have true justice. The Mishnah describes Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av as the happiest days of the year. Both were times when the individual tribes dropped their individual differences. They came together, they prayed together, they wore white, they married one another, and they remembered that we're all truly one. That is what we do here at Beth Am as well. Come together as one community. Black, white, and brown, gay, straight, and trans, rich and poor, young and old, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. You are all part of us. We are one community. That is pretty epic. Epic. Engagement, passion, introspection, and community. It's what we need to get the most from our faith, to see how truly attractive Judaism is. So here are a few ways that Beth Am has used engagement, passion, introspection, and community in the past. In 1955, Rabbi Baumgard not only had the wisdom to come to be the rabbi at Beth Am, he had the foresight to open the first Reform Jewish day school in the country, a day school that has created thousands of mensches, kept families coming here to Beth Am, and currently has a waiting list on most grades. That is epic. At a time when Jews and blacks were not allowed to join the Miami country clubs or eat in certain restaurants, Beth Am had the vision to open a basketball league that would bring the entire community, black and white, Christian and Jew, to our campus. That league has spread good vibes about Beth Am for decades across this community. And now children from over 40 different schools play in our league and consider Beth Am a place that they love. That is epic. At a time when B'nai Mitzvah engagement is at an post-B'nai Mitzvah engagement is at an all-time low across the movement, we challenged our 11th and 12th graders to write 2 essays, get 3 recommendations, and commit significant time every month to deep textual study and intense hands-on social action, including traveling to remote areas with minimal comforts, in order to live out Judaism's mandate of Tikkun Olam. And this year, our Social Justice Teen Fellowship has won the Fane Award, the highest honor the Reform movement gives for social justice programming. That is epic. When most families with young children across every branch of religion aren't coming because they feel unwelcome, we not only have special services for our littlest of ones, but Mickey and Minnie come and we tell stories and have bounce houses and we sing and we play with them in our Berlin Award-winning How About Shabbat. Now that is epic. And this building that we're creating, where no Jewish child will be turned away from our school because of lack of room, where we'll have the cutting edge in pedagogy, where couples will finally be able to wed in the synagogue even when we have a bat mitzvah that night, where all South Miami Jews will be welcome. That is epic. All of us coming here today, coming out of respect for our tradition, hoping our hearts will be open for our soul to grow. That is epic. I hope the sermon wasn't an epic fail. And let's all put in the work that we need to do in order to have an epic new year. Shana Tova u'Mitzuka.